Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So the Conservative Party had a leadership debate yesterday. Not all of the participants were there, but half of them were. And I found out a really interesting development when I found out on social media that a gentleman by the name of Rick Peterson, who is the chair of Peterson Capital in Edmonton, Alberta, is a founder and organizer of something called Center Ice Conservatives. Center Ice Conservatives, obviously taking a hockey analogy to where the Conservative Party should be. And I wanted to connect in with him and find out, number one, who Center Ice Conservatives are, and number two, what he thinks about the debate last night, and number three, what he thinks about the whole leadership contest. So, Rick Peterson, how are you? Welcome to our show, sir.
Hey, Brian, thanks. That's a lot of questions right off the top, man, early in the morning.
Sorry about that. It's late in the morning here in Toronto. You're just always behind us out west.
We are 2 hours in time, but ahead of you guys in a lot of things, right?
Fantastic. So, sir, tell me, what is the Center Ice Conservatives?
It's a platform, Brian, that started, we launched in April, a couple of us talking in right after Christmas time. The pragmatic mainstream middle of Canada, we think, has been quiet, has been a little bit pushed into the background by a lot of the very loud noises that are on, I won't say the fringes, but on the edges, rather, of the political spectrum. So we put together this little platform. We are all conservatives. We use the hockey analogy, Brian, because we are in the center. Most Canadians, I think there was an Abacus poll even last week, said that most Canadians, 49% of Canadians, 50% of Canadians consider themselves centrists. So our goal is to provide a platform and a voice where safe discussions from centrist points of view that reflect the views of the majority of Canadians, and these are the Canadians that decide where elections go.
Now, the Conservative leadership campaign right now doesn't seem very centrist.
No.
And the lead story in the Globe and Mail today, whether it's right or wrong, is that this is going to become the personal party of Pierre Poilievre.
Let me walk this back, Brian. There are very, very many Canadians and conservatives who consider themselves centrist. A leadership campaign, and I was in the leadership campaign for the Conservatives of 2017 and briefly in 2020 again before COVID shut us down. Leadership campaigns are a different animal than federal election campaigns. A leadership campaign is a membership sales drive. And the most motivated people that you can get to buy a membership and turn up to vote is usually the base. And of the five candidates that are in the race right now, hey, Pierre Poilievre has done a really good job of communicating his message to a certain base. Scott Aitchison and Jean Charest have done a good job of communicating to people that are probably more centrist as well, too. So to say that the leadership race hasn't had a centrist voice is not true. And our platform, we're not supporting, Brian, to make it clear, we're not, as a platform, coming out endorsing any one candidate. We have a couple people on our advisory council. If people go to centericeconservatives.ca, Brian Brulotte is a very well-known businessman from Ottawa, is a Pierre Poilievre supporter. Cameron Bonesso from Ottawa is as well, too. But then we've got others who are supporting the other candidates. So our goal, and Brian's goal and Cameron's goal, is no matter who becomes leader, he or she will need to listen to, take into account, and reflect the views of centrist Canadians.
So there was a Angus Reid poll that came out, I think, a week or two ago that was interesting, that suggested that within the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre had by far the highest popularity, but within the Conservative and Liberal Party and the nation in total, Jean Charest and Jean Charest's policies did. And it was really quite interesting. So it would suggest that it's far easier for Pierre Poilievre to win the Conservative leadership, but far harder for him to win the country, and far easier for Jean Charest. And while it didn't say it, it suggested that Pierre Poilievre was too extreme to the right, too right-wing conservative, and Jean Charest, and frankly, maybe Pierre Poilievre is suggesting this, is a centrist and maybe even a liberal. He keeps on saying he's a liberal premier. That was one of the comments just yesterday. I believe that he said on Twitter that he was glad he wasn't at the debate because he didn't want to sit in a small room playing cards with a liberal premier.
I really thought that comment from the Poilievre campaign was very high school and churlish and uncalled for. Right? If you're going to be positioning yourself as a Prime Minister of Canada, you need to rise above that. So let's give him credit and let's pretend it's somebody else writing those tweets. I think there's a good idea. We know who's doing it. But let's be really sure, Brian, to understand that what are the stakes here? Conservatives have had their butts kicked by Justin Trudeau 3 times in a row, 2015, 2019, and 2021. The party is heading into, within 2 years or shorter, another election. If the Conservatives are not able to articulate a message that allows them to form government, that is the end of the Federal Conservative Party's experiment that started back in 2003 with Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. So it's not by going to the fringes and the edges that the party can win. It's by focusing on issues of concern to mainstream Canadians. And whether it's Pierre Poilievre or Leslyn Lewis or Scott Aitchison or Jean Charest or even Roman Baber, all of them have elements of policy that everybody, you and I, are concerned about, whether it's inflation, vaccine mandates, how they rolled out. Hey, we all get that. But people don't vote on policy alone, Brian. They vote on tone, on maturity, on who do you want to see on the G8, on who do you want representing your country, which is ranked in the top 2 or 3 of the freest, healthiest, wealthiest, luckiest countries in the world. Who do you want to represent us? That's a big question. And members of the party will decide that, are deciding that right now.
It is a big question, but I gotta probe on you. I've had the privilege of interviewing Leslie Ann Lewis. I did it in one of the last, I guess, the campaign one ago. She is a social conservative. There's just no question about it. And she came across in the interview with me, and then unquestionably during the leadership campaign as a social conservative. I've interviewed Roman Baber, and Doug Ford did a really good job winning progressive conservatives majority government in Ontario. Doug Ford kicked him out of the caucus because of his views on vaccine mandates, which I think a lot of people in centrist Ontario thought that Doug Ford did a surprisingly good job in listening to the scientists and managing through the pandemic. And I've interviewed the editor and publisher of Ottawa Life magazine, who had a cover story on the the existential crisis within the Conservative Party, suggesting it was a fight between the populist right wing that was anti-vax, anti-mask, supportive of the trucker convoy, and the Laurentian elite that is Jean Charest. It seems like it's a real division. It's almost a division between the former Reformers or Alliance and the former Progressive Conservative Party, isn't it?
You know what? If you go outside our studios here and you go talk to people in the street, 85% of them don't pay attention to the inside baseball labels, Brian. You know that. I mean, you talk to regular people every day. Social conservatives have always had and will always have a role in the party. And if you look at Ed Fast, the former finance minister, who is a strong social conservative from Abbotsford, BC, he's a strong supporter of Jean Charest. Every conservative coalition, and to former Prime Minister Harper's credit, he was able to keep progressive and social conservatives in the team, under the tent, on the same side, not shooting at each other. So Leslyn Lewis has a campaign where that abortion issue, no matter how she portrays it, is a key issue. And good for her, she has her supporters. If the Conservative Party is painted as being that's the most important issue for 90% of Canadians, the abortion issue and women's right it's done, right? So it's not to say that you cannot have a cohabitation of all these different views, libertarian views. Conservatives are the hardest group to keep together, aren't we? Because there's so many views on the inside. So a successful government, and we're coming into an election where people are saying, well, this will be a change election. Everybody's tired of Trudeau. It's been 10 years. Trudeau's a hell of a campaigner, Brian. This guy's good.
Yeah, no
matter what you say, we have to keep into mind election campaigns count. And the ability to portray, think about this, Brian, the ability to portray leadership on a national stage does not come easy. Most people don't pay attention to the campaigns until about the last 3 weeks. So between now and then, who's going to portray a statesmanlike, smart, reflective leadership position that reflects the interests of where Canadians are going? That's the issue. That's the ballot. Because I got to tell you, we lose one more, we're 0 for 4, it's over. Conservative Party's over as we know it today.
center ice conservatives. Didn't Aaron O'Toole play to the center? And didn't the Conservative Party say that's not where they wanted to be?
Nope. Aaron faked right, went to the center, didn't go far enough, came back. Nobody knew where he was. I like Aaron. Good guy. You can't pivot. To Pierre Poilievre's credit, there's no pivoting in this guy. He's going, he's doubling down, right? Andrew Scheer couldn't articulate where he was going, right? Stephen Harper alienated a lot of conservatives with a kneecap ban in his campaign in 2015. So people say, oh, Aaron O'Toole went to the center. No, Aaron O'Toole ran a leadership campaign that was focusing on, quote, true blue conservatives, right? And if that was the path to power, he'd be prime minister today. It's not.
But isn't that the path that Pierre Poilievre is taking? It's a populist path. It's a right-wing path. I sat down with someone on his campaign at a dinner after a funeral back a couple of months ago, and they said this is unbelievably exciting. It's a whole bunch of people that supported Maxime Bernier that are coming out and attending the rallies. A whole bunch of people from the truck convoy that are coming out and attending the rally. It's almost as if the right-wing anti-vaxxers are being absorbed into the Conservative Party. She saw this as a positive. I'm wondering.
Well, the little bit of inside baseball here, Brian, but there's only been 80 or 90,000 ballots returned today out of the 600 and some thousand memberships. So it's one thing to show up at a rally. Who is going to fill out the ballot, return the membership? We'll have to see what happens. This is not over. You never know what's going to happen. But I'm also going to point on something that's really key. On August 11th, if you go to centericeconservatives.ca, one of the things that we are getting, and we're drinking from a fire hose of interest, and thanks to you and others in the media as well too. We are hosting a conference in Edmonton. It's live, and we're going to be live streaming it. But we've asked a whole bunch of people from different sides of the political spectrum to come and speak about just policy and ideas. So here's who we've got. We've got like Christy Clark, the former BC Liberal leader. So to come back to the disingenuous comments of Mr. Poilievre's campaign, when you're the Liberal leader in British Columbia, you're governing a coalition of Conservatives and Liberals, right? There is no really large Conservative Party there. Christy Clark ran a centrist coalition, right? We have people like Jack Mintz. We have Brian Lee Crowley. If you go to our website, centericeconservatives.ca, check on the agenda, check who's coming. We've got 15 people coming to talk about issues that count to centrist Canadians. So that tells me we're onto something, Brian. We started this little centrist conservatives 90 days ago, thinking it'd be a nice little project. We have thousands of people signed up on our email list. We have money flowing into our campaign account. It's not a campaign account. We have donations coming from across Canada, $10, $15, $20, which just basically keeps this largely volunteer organization going. We have an invitation to host a conference in Halifax in October, which we're going to do. So what does this tell you? This tells you, and my good friend Melanie Parody, who I know well, who used to be Aaron O'Toole's communications director, I believe it was. Melanie was quoted a couple of weeks ago in the media saying, yeah, it's good that these center-ice people are doing what they're doing because the moderates or the centrists, which is a better word, have been lazy. And she's right, Brian. She's right. Think of the groups that are very articulate and vocal, and they should be, that are the libertarian or the social conservatives or the anti-vax or who speaks for the middle? Who's put their head up and said, hey, we represent the centrist? Nobody has. We have to. So if you don't stand up and be counted, people who do stand up will be counted. And our goal is to provide safe spot, a platform where ideas that generate and resonate with 50% of Canadians can be discussed.
Senator Marjorie LeBreton put forward, I think, a fairly lucid elucidation of exactly what you're talking about. And she was criticized fairly dramatically by the Poilievre campaign and some people on the right. Was she not?
Could be. I mean, Marjorie has been one of the strongest supporters that we have, but I just want to articulate that we have people, we don't have anybody supporting the Leslie Lewis campaign, but we have people who are strongly supportive of the Pierre Poilievre campaign. When you're coming out and doing something like this, Brian, if you can't take a little bit of criticism, you shouldn't be out here, right? So, you guys are milquetoast, you guys are soft liberals, you guys are whatever. If you look at what the average age of the population in Canada is today, Brian, here's a skill testing question for you. What's the average population age in Canada, do you think?
45.
No, it's 28.
Oh, really? It's a lot younger than I thought.
Did you know that 2/3, no, what is it, 1/3 of the GTA, people in the GTA were not born in Canada right now today. Yeah. So you talk to people about red, Tory, liberal, whatever, like it just goes over their heads, right?
No,
but
I think that's the case, but our
just let me finish this if I can. Just let me finish this. If you ask them, where do you stand on fiscal matters? Well, I'm a fiscal conservative. I balance budgets, debt. You got to, most people would say that. And then you say, where are you on issues like First Nations reconciliation, women's rights, LGBTQ rights? They're what used to be progressive is now mainstream. That's where people are. So this generation of Canadians who doesn't know and care about what happened 30 years ago, that people who are in small vocal minorities keep throwing at, is irrelevant to the people that decide elections. 50 swing ridings decide the elections. We own 13 of them as federal conservatives. What does that tell you, Brian? What does that tell you where we need to go, right? Using Wayne Gretzky's hockey analogy, where's the puck going? Puck's not going to the right wing. It's in the middle. It's where you got to chase it.
But again, I think that's where the Conservative Party is going today. I apologize, but what I see coming out of the Poilievre campaign, what I see, people talking about anti-vax support. There was a debate in one of the leadership debates about who supported the convoy strongest.
I know.
And when Charest suggested that you had to stand up for law and order if you were prime minister, he was. It was insulted. It was almost as if standing up for law and order is not something that you do within the Conservative Party. Some people thought that was almost Trumpian, that it was comparable to Donald Trump, storming the Capitol Hill. Some of his ideas on firing the Bank of Canada, the governor of the Bank of Canada, thinking about cryptocurrency as being the solution and an anti-inflationary hedge. They're pretty extremist. They're pretty populist. They're pretty right wing, aren't they?
I'm in the capital markets, Brian. I've been in the investment industry for 30 years, and people in the investment industry have a good BS detector, right? Because they're responsible for investing funds that are not theirs on behalf of retirees and raising money. They roll their eyes at a lot of the stuff that is heard, not just from the Poilievre campaign, but in leadership campaigns, things out there that are, people don't have to always agree with them. But on the other hand, the underlying issues that these leadership campaigns have to deal with are core issues to Canadians across Canada. So whether it's inflation, whether it's housing, whether it's drinking water on First Nations territory or land or reserves, whether it's the ability to have a job for your 30-year-old kid, those are all issues that have been very well addressed by all the candidates. So where people roll their eyes at the Conservative Party is when they do solicit and pay attention and honor the noise that's on the fringe. And people can decide if it's extreme or not, but I can tell you that you can have good ideas and be focusing on certain elements in your campaign, but the vote for the next prime minister is an ensemble. It's a collection of impressions that come from the leader. And leadership campaigns are different than federal election campaigns. So here's the big gap. You want to talk hockey and business? There is a vacant center ice space in the political spectrum. And in the investment industry, you would say, here's a market that is underserved. You have the Liberals with a formal, quasi-formal alliance with the NDP moving to the progressive left. You have the Conservative Party. It seems to be moving to the right. Like who speaks for the middle? So one of the things, Brian, that we're getting federal, what used to be called blue liberals at the highest levels, calling us saying, we think you guys are on the right track. We don't want to play a role with you because you're conservatives. You're on the right track. Keep us posted. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells
Right.
me that if you called yourself center ice, you might actually be even more successful than if you were center ice conservatives, because I do
Stay
think that
tuned.
you're right, that
Stay tuned.
there are some people that are on the progressive side that think that the Liberal Party, particularly the Liberal Party under current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has moved to the left, and I think it's comparable to Liberals and the center that thought that Kathleen Wynne and the Ontario Liberal Party had moved too far to the left, and that's one of the reasons why the Liberal Party in Ontario wasn't successful. So I do think you're right in that regard, is that there is this vacancy in the middle. But I come back to, can you be successful? I interviewed former mayor of Toronto, former cabinet minister in the Mulroney government, David Crombie, who's a relative of mine, but not a close relative. He said that the party left him. He didn't leave the party. The party left him. Effectively saying that the Progressive Conservative Party is no more. It isn't. And he felt he no longer felt comfortable within the Conservative Party of Canada. In other words, he's still in the center. It's the party that moved to the right.
You would find a lot of Liberals that would say the same thing about the Trudeau Liberal Party as well, too, right?
No,
So
I agree. And that's why I think you should be center ice.
Well, you know what? Stay tuned. We started with this little platform, Brian. Honestly, we had no idea that we get the reception that we did. But political parties are dynamic, and I think you're exactly on something that needs to be probed further. Is society is dynamic, right? We all change our views, and but political parties are not static. And the political party evolution of the Conservatives right now, we're in a very, very important phase. Where's this party going? The Liberals, we know where they're going, but the leadership counts. The leader of the party dictates where the party goes. Make no doubt about it, right? The leader of the party. So, Trudeau took the Liberals from a third place in the corner of the House and Commons to a majority government. And he has earned 3 mandates in a row, not only from his Liberal supporters, but from the government, from Canadians, to take the direction that he is. He deserves it. We're going to see where the next leader of the Conservative Party wants to take Canada. That's the ultimate ballot question. Where do you want Canada to go? There will be 2 or 3 competing visions, and we want that vision to be one that's a centrist vision.
And I understand and agree with you. I guess I come back to, at the same time, what you're arguing, I don't see how it can exist within the reality that the Globe and Mail, right or wrong, today said it's not a question if Poilievre is going to win or not. It's a question of whether he's going to win on the first ballot or not, and that it's going to become the personal party of Pierre Poilievre. And this is a gentleman that posts YouTube videos of him smoking, shishi, talking about cryptocurrency. He's competing with Leslie Ann Lewis as to who is the strongest supporter of the trucker convoy, when poll after poll says 15% of Canadians supported the trucker convoy, but it was only 15%. And our radio station is in the suburbs of Toronto. The Conservative Party in the last 2 elections didn't win hardly any ridings in the 905, or at least if it did in the 905, it didn't win. It won 1 in Peel. And the one in Peel it won was by Michael Chong, who I think is probably the poster person for your center ice party. He's probably the most left wing member or center member of the Conservative caucus, to my uneducated view. And when I take a look, and I've been on panels on election night the last 2 times in regards to why your party didn't win the 905 or didn't win at least Mississauga and Brampton. It's because of the social conservatism, the fiscal conservatism that you spoke about. Frankly, I think people agreed with, but they didn't agree with guns. They didn't agree with social conservatism. They didn't agree with the focus that Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole had brought to the campaign.
Sounds like you should be a centrist conservative, Brian. So you can do that by going to centericeconservatives.ca, signing up for contacts on our emails. And it's not rocket science, is it? You're 100% right. You're 100% right. So the direction of the party is absolutely in the hands of the leader, he or she. And big question for conservatives is, where do you want this party to go? Big decision coming up.
An existential crisis within the Conservative Party, a debate between populism and centrism. Sounds like it's going to be an interesting couple of months for you.
Well, we have a very big event here in in Edmonton on August 11th. We're looking forward to it. And sorry for my golden retriever dogs barking here in the background. Lots going on. Keep posted. And
What's the website?
Brian, thank you for
giving us
a
to
voice
if they want to check you out?
Standardizedconservatives.ca.
Rick Peterson, thanks very much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Apologize for the golden retrievers in the background. Okay.
No problems. Well, that was a fascinating conversation with Rick Peterson, the founder of Center-Right Conservatives. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back more in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I wanted to just finish this conversation with Rick Peterson of Center-Right Conservatives, who I thank for coming on and addressing some of my questions and talking to us a little bit about where the Conservative Party needs to go. By making a couple of comments, I also have interviewed in the past a gentleman that had organized an organization that is Conservatives for Clean Energy, and talked about how the Conservative Party needed to have a justifiable, reasonable energy policy if it wanted to be successsul in the coming election. I've interviewed people that talk about how the Conservative Party needs to move to the center, people that have written books about that topic. I've interviewed people from the United States that have written books on the center needs to regain populism. And I do think it's an issue that the squeaky wheel makes the noise and gets the attention. During the last provincial election in Ontario, I went to a couple of different all candidates debates, and the people that were making the noise were the New Blue Party, the Ontario Party. They had in the all candidates meetings often the biggest crowds, more signs, were making more noise. We're talking down the other candidates, and they got 3, 4, 5% of the popular vote. So I worry that too much of the attention is on right now people on the extreme. And I think that Rick was right. Selling memberships versus getting them out to vote is key. That said, I do think that, you can motivate for a while some of the people, and you may get them out to vote, whether they continue to support your party. And that's where the party's policy should be 2 years from now when the election happens is a big issue. I think that some of the freedom movement, the anti-vax, the anti-mask movement will dissipate over time. More and more that the statistics come out. And I think, all of us are of the opinion now that this is no longer a pandemic, it's an endemic. We're going to have to live with it. I've had COVID, even though I've been vaxxed and boosted, et cetera. And I think the statistics are that, probably half of Ontario, I'm not sure whether it's the same across the country, have actually gotten the virus and hopefully recovered. But the statistics were that it's showing that of the people that are in hospitals, the people that are in ICUs, the people that are regrettably dying are primarily people that are not vaxxed. It's going to start to resonate. People are going to start to understand this at some point in time eventually. And while I don't think we're all going to start masking again, as these variants continue to go crazy, particularly in the fall when we start to go back indoors again, I think people are going to become mindful of it all over again. And, freedom is something we've fought for, and it's something that we want and that we hold dear. But I don't think in Canada we hold it so dear that we neglect our fellow citizens. And I really do think that we've got a commitment to the balance of our community. And that's why we drive on one side of the road, not in the center of the road. That's why we put seatbelts on. That's why we get driver's license. That's why we get licenses for our pets. That's why we pick up our dog stuff. We have respect for our community. And we don't yell freedom every time we want to do something that society says is inappropriate. And for some reason, politically, and I think this has got a lot to do with Donald Trump, frankly, and maybe some of the right-wing social media in the United States and Canada, that have, for some reason, made vaccines and masks this time, the poster for the anti-freedom side of things, and the freedom people have opposed that. That said, I think it's a minority. And I think that the vast majority of Canadians are in the center, just as Rick has described. And I think that the Liberal Party has moved to the left. And I think the Conservative Party, particularly the Conservative Party that may be led by Pierre Poilievre, and if Poilievre wins, will even more so move to the right, which will leave this gaping hole in the middle of the political spectrum where I think the vast majority of Canadians are. And, I come back to what Macron did in France. He created a brand new political party in the center because he thought that one side had gone too left and the other side had gone too right. And, he just got elected again. It was a struggle, but he got elected again. I think about Biden. Biden effectively played to that in the United States, the moderate. Who knows whether he'll be successful long term. I think Doug Ford played to the progressive part of the Progressive Conservative Party in the last election, and may not have got Liberals to vote for him, but Liberals didn't get motivated to go out to the polls and just stayed home. I think that is where the vast majority of people are. During the last couple of election campaigns, there's been a huge focus on issues other than fiscal issues. 2 election cycles ago, during the leadership debate, the only person talking about fiscal issues was Maxime Bernier, which was surprising. And Andrew Scheer hardly addressed fiscal issues at all. I think the fiscal issues are going to become even more important because we've got debt that is larger than we've almost ever had before, deficits that look like they're going to continue, inflation that is an all-time high, interest rates that are going up, a recession that we're either in or about to go into, potential for a housing collapse, housing affordability. Even with a housing collapse, that is a huge issue, is we've got government that's not supplying enough homes, and productivity that seems to be anemic. And the former Minister of Finance that is no longer part of the Liberal government comes out and criticizes his former boss for leading a government that has forgotten about productivity, prosperity, and economic growth, effectively. There's a huge hole in the middle of the political spectrum, but we don't seem to have the people that can grab people's attention in that center. And I'm not sure what it's going to take. Aaron O'Toole, tried. Rick said you couldn't pivot. You can't go right and then pivot to the center. Trudeau, our current prime minister, appears to have started left and gone more left. Paul Martin was in the center, but he didn't excite people and got turfed. Ignatieff was in the center, and he really didn't excite people and got turfed. So what's the answer? I'm not sure what the answer is. Is it the creation of a new political party? I think that with our current first past the post system, that's virtually impossible in the Canadian political system, and leads to fragmentation and losses, as the creation of the Reform or the Alliance, and frankly the NDP over time has shown that in a popular vote, a proportional representation vote, maybe a new political party could be created and have some success. But I don't think in our current system it does. I think what it takes is a dynamic, populist oriented individual, but that represents the center, to start elucidating some of the issues of the center, which I think are basically fiscal conservatism, fiscal sanity, prosperity, productivity, etc., but at the same time, social progressive issues, because that's where I think the vast majority of people are. They're supportive of gay rights, of LGBT rights, of a woman's right to choose, of a lot of those issues that would have been deemed in the past progressive issues from a social standpoint. But at the same time, they firmly believe in the capitalist system, in a free market, in a free economy, in productivity, in prosperity, in people's desire to get ahead, which in a redistributive left-wing economy, you can't achieve. People want to be millionaires, or they want to be successful. They want to pass on money to their children. And redistribution, I don't think, is the answer. The answer is give us all an equal opportunity at the start with good education and good healthcare. But then it's up to us and how we work, whether we work hard or whether we're lazy, whether we've got great ideas or lousy ideas. It's a free market for ideas. It's a free market for the value of our labor. And I think that's what we all want. So I think the existential crisis for Canada is, can we find that leader that is going to represent fiscal conservatism and social progressivity, that's going to appeal to the center ice of the political spectrum and end up being successful for Canada, for whatever political party that individual, male or female, French or English or whatever, decides to join and lead, and whether the political system will gravitate to that individual to show them support, such that ends up having the noise, the social media power behind, instead of these squeaky wheels on the far right or the left that seem to get so much attention in the media, in political parties, in leadership campaigns, etc. There's a lot of political studies that show when you've got systems where political parties are right or left, to win that party, you got to move to the extreme of the right or the left. You can't be in the center. And I think that's a problem, because the center is where the vast majority of people are. And I think that's what it takes to win. Anyway, what do I know? That's our show for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from Edmonton, Alberta, at www.saga960am.ca. I love chatting with you all. If any of you have got some interesting points of view that you want to share, give me a holler, and I'd love to put you on air. Good night, everybody.